All right, we got Nate Engle, assistant coach at Stanford. First of all, Nate, congrats on your news that you are having twins. It's like
Thank
every wrestling coach's dream, just so you know. So, good job on that. First thing I was going to ask you, so you're out in California, which is that's where you're from too, obviously, but it's kind of the epicenter of Corona right now. So, what's it like just living out there right now? I mean, is what's the I don't know, what's it like living in California right now during all this?
It's strange. I mean, there's nobody. I mean, there's still people on the roads, but not as much as there used to be. I think when it first started, my commute turned into about a 25-minute commute instead of like an hour commute. The stores, there's not a lot of people. We only go out once a week, and then for groceries. And yeah, it's just strange. I mean, everybody's home. There's more people out working out on the, running around and walking and stuff. So it's a strange world we're living in.
Yeah, you guys have been in it longer than most, so most of your college wrestlers, obviously, they can't do what people have normally been doing this time of year, or maybe even if they weren't going to wrestle or anything, if they were going to lift or anything, wrestlers basically just can't do the normal training that they would do right now.
Right.
So what would be your advice for your guys or advice for high school kids of how to get better during this time, even though it's not ideal, obviously?
I mean, really, it's just like thinking outside of the box. I think as wrestlers, like our brain, we're just like different animals. And, whether it's grabbing stuff that you have in the garage or running outside when it's nice, doing sprints, that type of stuff. I mean, like when I would go overseas, you can't always find like a sauna or something to, cut weight in. So you had to like think outside of the box. So I think it's just really, staying in touch with the guys and then giving them a workout plan, that's approved by like compliance and everything. And just staying active, right? I mean, like you said, a lot of people could be taking the time off from wrestling, but they're still working out. So just really thinking outside of the box.
Yeah. Um, Jesse had a question for you, being a West Coast guy.
Yeah, so we were going to get into kind of your path to Stanford, but to start that off, just kind of taking us through your process of picking a college and everything like that. But I think it's kind of good for people to hear how much different our options are out here on the West Coast as compared to their options there in the Midwest. Because I think that there in the Midwest, they take for granted a little bit how many schools have wrestling and how many opportunities they actually do have to pick from. Because I, being from Arizona, when I was coming out of high school, I only had like 3 options here in the state, and one of them was Arizona State, which basically meant that took away one of my options from me. But could you just kind of walk everybody through your process of how you made up your decision on where to go and kind of what that looked like, and maybe how it was different for us on the West Coast than it is for them in the Midwest?
Yeah, I mean, I was really small coming out of high school. I think I weighed like 115 pounds soaking wet, and at that time, you were considered like they didn't know if you were going to weigh 125 pounds. So obviously, it's changed since then. But for me, I was contacted by a lot of NAI schools. I hadn't qualified for the state tournament yet. It just I think I worked really, really hard, but I didn't have the results at the national level yet. So I was looking at like Dana College and William Penn and Menlo College, because in California, there's only a handful of Division I schools. There's a big JUCO system and then a couple of NAI schools, and now there's even more so. So to me, I chose William Penn at first because I had some friends that I knew in California that were going to school there. And then obviously I made my way to Missouri Valley. I needed a change of scenery, a place um, that like just better coaches and stuff. And so I changed to that, which looking back, I think like I don't regret any of the decisions I made on where to go to school. And Missouri Valley was like the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't think without Missouri Valley, I wouldn't be like where I am today. I wouldn't have cross paths with Coach Mayab and Coach Hag and you guys and Jason Heslop and, just the whole Kansas City area. So, but I think like what you said is that there is so many opportunities out there. Like you don't have to just go Division I. You can go NAI, you can go Division III, Division II, JUCO. There's so many options out there now that you can get scholarship. And, I would tell just people in general is like, look at your options. There's so many great options out there.
I kind of that kind of leads me to this next question, but Nate, I think of you as like the ultimate networker, and I mean in a good way. And you're a hustler. You've taken one opportunity and turned it into another opportunity that was good, and it hasn't been like the most obvious path at all times. You went to Missouri Valley, then you did Greco, and then you've gotten into coaching, and you went from the service academies to Stanford. So just talk about. I know this is probably a strange question to some people, but talk about what your mindset is of turning an opportunity that is from one opportunity to the next. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you hit it right on the head, is like networking. My dad sold life insurance my whole life, and he was a really, really good salesman. And so maybe I just like listened to him a lot. But I think it's not like what it's who and those relationships. And everywhere you go, you meet like these amazing people in our sport. Like, I think we're a big fraternity, a small but big fraternity. And I think along every place I've gone, I've always met like really good people and stayed in contact with them, which, led to different opportunities. When I was at Missouri Valley, I started going to Mo West and doing that. And then I met Spencer Mango at Fargo one summer when Ryan, I think, was like a freshman in high school. And then Ivan Ivanov said, "Hey, why don't you come wrestle Greco?" I mean, I knew what a headlock was and an arm throw, and I was terrible at it. So, and then that blossomed into going to Northern Michigan and meeting a lot of great people there. And then going into the Army and wrestling for the WCAP program and doing that. And then when I was in Colorado Springs, I met Joel Sherritt, which he was at Air Force, and I took a volunteer role there for a season. Then he went to Navy, and then obviously Navy for 4 years, and now at Stanford with Jason, Ray, and Alex. And I think it's just, I don't know, I've just been truly lucky, and like with the people that I've met, that I've been able to meet the right people to teach me how to be a better coach and a better person in our sport. Because I don't think necessarily it's what you've done in the sport. I don't think being a Olympic champ or an NCAA champ or something like that makes you a great coach. I think what makes you a great coach is caring for your athletes on a daily basis, not just wrestling wise, right? Like, we want everybody at Stanford to be an NCAA champ and Olympic champ if that's their goals. But the most important reason of getting athletes to go to college is to graduate, become productive members of society, get jobs, get married, have kids, and repeat the cycle. And so I think that's what's most rewarding for me. And probably that's a long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, I've just been truly lucky to meet a lot of great people that I can kind of make my coaching, Bible, I guess you could say.
Yeah. No, I think your resume is awesome because it just has, you've grinded through a lot of different paths, and it's led you to where you are. I think it's pretty cool. So Stanford, big name value school. You guys have had some results in wrestling. What's it like? That's totally different than what, most of what we in Missouri know, you know what I'm saying? Like, so what's like the wrestling culture? And the overall culture being a part of Stanford?
I mean, Stanford obviously is just like an amazing place. I mean, academically, it's one of the top schools in the country. Athletically, it's just an amazing place. But I think, when I got contacted by Jason, Ray, and Alex, I had known them for a while, obviously, in the wrestling community. But Jason's dad, obviously, been the head coach at Central Michigan for a very, very, very long time, and was really successful there and still is. And their vision of the program was like, hey, you don't have, it's a great academic school, but we can compete at a really high level. And so I think the culture there is really good right now for the program. I mean, we got, Real Woods and Shane Griffith and Nathan Traxler, were top 12 seeds. Shane was, a finalist for the Hodge. Real Woods was a 3 seed. And then the rest of the guys on the team, and we're they're just all really young. I mean, we had 5 national qualifiers, 4 were freshmen, which was the most, I think, in any Division I school. So I just think, you can go anywhere and be a great wrestler. It doesn't matter the school. And I think now, especially with what's going on with the coronavirus, and seeing that seasons can end early, that there's like you have to be ready for that next step in life. And we're not always ready for that, but like having a great degree from whatever school you go to, wrestling will end at some point and you have to move on. And whether you stay coaching or, whatever it is, you just got to be ready for it. So I hope it opens people's eyes that education is really important, at any school.
Yeah. Is it difficult getting people to Stanford just because obviously it's a really good academic school? So, and wrestling sometimes not always associated with academics, you know what I'm saying? Is that a difficult thing to do when you're recruiting?
Yeah. I mean, it's like a smaller net when you're casting it out. I mean, it was the same thing when I was at Navy. You got to get kids that want to be in the military, and not everybody wants to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's probably a smaller pool, but they're out there, and I think it helps when you have a really good team that kids see that. Everybody has flow wrestling and all these different intermat, and they're publishing articles. And I think now kids these days have way more opportunities than we did growing up, that you see more of those programs. When I was growing up, it was like, oh, you just heard about Iowa because they won national titles, like it was going out of style. So no, I think kids are realizing more and more that there's other schools out there than the handful of schools that you always hear about.
Yeah. You have a Greco background, obviously. So how do you, in spring and summer, we focus on freestyle and Greco. A lot of kids are like, oh, I like folk style. Freestyle looks cool. I'm not so sure about Greco. So how would you A, sell people on Greco, and B, what that they can get out of Greco could directly help them with their folk style, which is obviously what you're coaching now.
Right. I mean, a guy that was a really big influence in my life was Dennis Hall, who's, the godfather of Greco-Roman wrestling in the US, I think. And he really made me see like the transition between Greco and folk style and freestyle. And so I tell, athletes all the time, like, one, you're going to learn how to hand fight. Two, you're going to learn how to use a 2-on-1 and an underhook and really use your hips, and just be more open to when you're wrestling folk style. Like, you're not afraid to throw somebody. You're not afraid to get your hips in and learn how to hand fight. And that's going to help you at the next level. I mean, hand fighting's so big at college that I think Greco teaches you that. And then two, why not? I mean, you can change up from wrestling folk style and wrestle some freestyle and Greco, and it's different. Your mind's thinking differently. And I think that's important, because if you keep doing the same thing over and over, you're just going to have the same results, and it's not like you're going to open your mind to what else is out there. And then two, I mean, the next level after college is wrestling internationally. And so why not learn while you're young and learn the ins and outs of freestyle and Greco? And I mean, obviously, like, you guys have been doing it for a long time there. And I think Kansas City always does really remarkably well internationally. So I don't know. I think, with our guys, with our RTC, we do a couple of days of freestyle a week and a couple of days of Greco a week. And even if they're not going to go out and compete in Greco, I think that everybody should learn how to do it.
Yeah. Jesse, do you have any add for that?
No, I think that's pretty good. I would just second what Nate said. I mean, I think everybody's drilled, 2-on-1s or whatever, and underhooks and folk style, but until you really kind of immerse yourself in Greco, you don't really, take it to the next level. So I just think that was a great point to make. So,
I mean, you look at like somebody like Spencer Mango, and obviously being a Missouri guy, but he didn't start wrestling until he was like a freshman in high school, and then ended up making 2 Olympic teams and lots and lots of world teams, and taking 5th in the world, and having a remarkable career, all because he started wrestling Greco. So I think that those kids are out there, and if we can get more coaches at the youth level to buy into Greco, I think that Greco will continue to keep getting better in the United States.
All right, I got a couple more fun questions for you here now. So one, asked someone this a few days ago. Who is your least favorite person you've had to wrestle with? And I don't mean from like a personal standpoint. I mean, like, who's been the least enjoyable to wrestle with, whether it be in practice or in a match or whatever? You're just like, oh, this is gonna be tough. This is gonna suck, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, probably Dennis Hall. When I was competing, I would go train with him a lot, and he coached me for a long time. I mean, that guy is like crazy in a good way. But I think he sets like an internal clock of like 2 hours for a grind match, because we'd start drilling and then it turns into a grind match. And me being, quite a bit younger than him, it's like you don't want to say that you're tired. You just keep going. And I mean, that guy can still go. I'm guarantee if he and I were in the garage right now and, he'd probably wrestle hard for 2 hours straight. So I'd probably say like practice-wise, Dennis Hall. And then I think in a match, probably just Spencer, because like I was always so close to, like beating him, but I could never overcome that. And he was my best friend. So it was hard sometimes to like draw the line and be like, hey, we're going to go at it. And then after we can go back to being friends.
Yeah. So what's that like wrestling? Like you're matched up, that your best friend is in the bracket ahead of you. Kind of a unique experience. What's that like?
I mean, I always knew I was going to wrestle him, but I think after, the first time, then it just was like, hey, we do this every single day. And what's funny is like Spencer would never get bloody noses, but I think right off the whistle, I always headbutted him for some reason and he'd get a bloody nose. I don't think Deborah was too fond of that. But, and then you shake hands and one person gets their hand raised and the other person doesn't. And then you go on and you get better. And I think we had a good working relationship that it was like, okay, well, if I lost, I'm going to help you go win a world medal or Olympic champion and, just keep getting better.
Yeah. All right. So last question for you. This can be something funny or interesting or just unique, whatever, but you've had a lot of different experiences, obviously. You've traveled a lot of different places. Do you have any story that stands out as this is a strange story that people could hear about wrestling?
Man, that's a good question. Like you said, I've been to so many places, but I don't know. I mean, probably some stuff I can't repeat on.
That's a lot of people's story. Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm just trying to think like
what's the most interesting place you've traveled, maybe, that you were like,
I would say Cuba.
Odd.
Honestly, like Cuba, if anybody can go to Cuba, is like the coolest place I've ever been to. And number one, I mean, it was so unique. We went over there in 2010. It wasn't open up to like, you couldn't just go there. You had to go there for sports. And so like we're running a practice the first day, and Jamil Byers, who's actually going in the Hall of Fame this year. We were getting on the bus and Sean Lewis, our coach, said, hey, the bus is full. Why don't you guys run a practice? Well, none of us have been to Cuba except for like Jamil. And he's a heavyweight. So he's like, I got this, guys. I got this. And so we start running all over Cuba in Havana. And I'm like, there's no way that we should be running for 2 hours. And I was in plastics at the time because we had a tournament in like 4 days. And it's hot. There's guys cutting the grass with machetes everywhere. Long story short, like 2.5 hours later, I look at Jamil. I'm like, hey, this isn't right. And out comes this guy in a car who ended up being an Olympic champ for Cuba that knew Jamil and showed us the way to practice. But I mean, Cuba, those guys half their team was wrestling in socks, like kicking our butts. There's a hole in the ground to go to the bathroom. I mean, they're unbelievable athletes. They're amazing people and the friendliest people I've ever met. So I would say like Cuba would be probably my favorite place.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that's about all we got for you, man. Appreciate you taking the time.
No, thanks for all you guys are doing. I mean, this has been incredible to watch all the different interviews with the great people in our sport. And hopefully the quarantine ends soon, but I hope you guys keep it going. I love watching it and appreciate all you guys do.
Thanks, man. Thanks.